Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Just to get rid of him. Right. Look, the main thing I'm going to do this afternoon is talk. I think you're all here because because of the why. I mean, we're all here because digital is this life force that's just ripping through and reinventing our businesses. My presentation is going to focus quite a lot on the what. Some of you as consumers will have experienced that. I think everybody will learn something in terms of the scale of what the transformation we're trying to make is. And then in questions, I'll leave some time. So if you want to get a little bit more into the how, the process of how we did that, some of the trade-offs and challenges, I've left that for questions. So I'll go through the what now at a fairly good clip. So there's never been a more exciting time to be in our industry. People are consuming more content than ever before in lots of different ways and in lots of different devices. And actually, consumption, it's not quite what the press always says, but the consumption of video content has gone up by 20% over the last 5 years. There are not that many categories of consumer behaviour that have increased by that sort of magnitude over that period of time. Let's just skip ahead. So 10 years ago, you're all impossibly young, I can see, but if you cast your mind back 10 years, effectively it would have a really simple business. We actually hark back to those days. Life was very simple. It wasn't as large, but it was very simple. We had one product. It was a physical delivered product. We gave you a set-top box. We nailed a dish to the side of your chimney. And we had a relatively simple product set in terms of what you'd have associated with us as being largely driven by sports and movies. As I say, life was simple. Now, significantly since then, technology has meant that consumers have exploded the number of devices on which they expect to consume. You'll all be sitting here. If my presentation is really dull, you can look at your smartphones and you can start watching TV, either live or from last night. And that's ubiquitous. I mean, that experience will be replicated from everybody, from your kids all the way up to your parents if they're with us. So that's been a really big change. And customers have genuinely almost complete flexibility. The word from Lloyd's I really like, I use a lot in the business, is friction. And we are now in a frictionless world, certainly insofar as the consumption of content is concerned. Now, alongside that, our content offering has also got bigger and broader, and in part that's a consequence of being able to reach bigger audiences, and then the need to adopt a more segmented strategy because you're reaching more people. And this has had a real-world influence on Sky, and I'll skip through this quickly. You'll all be digital early adopters, but you can see our original relationship, which started in the living room and largely ended in the living room, has now extended to every part of the household, every member of the household, and every screen wherever that can be. Mobile is really centric to that, and devices, not devices that we create, but devices on which we're able to distribute content. So just a couple of really big, powerful statistics. Over 6 million customers use our mobile TV service. That's not trialing, that's actually use it as a regular part of their consumption. We offer up to 70 channels over your iPad or your mobile device. That's more than you could have received over a set-top box 10 years ago. If we get a big show, for us a big show is a big Premier League match or the premiere of Game of Thrones, we can have up to 400,000 live concurrent video streams. That is putting an enormous load on broadband networks. That's something that certainly we think is the largest volume in Europe and potentially one of the largest live concurrent volumes in the world. And you can even use your mobile phone to set a recording on your set-top box back at home. So again, if you sit here and I've jogged your memory that you wanted to watch a program tonight, you could use an app on your phone to use what they nowadays, and this has been going for 5 years, but we now call the Internet of Things. How every device is interconnected, everything's IP addressable, and you can sit here on one device and control something that's happening back at home. And we certainly think that for many of our customers, many today and more in the future, what we do on these other devices, not the device that you'd always associated as the set-top box, but these other devices are at least as important and will be more important going forward than what we do elsewhere. In total, our collection of apps have been downloaded 81 million times, and that's just in the UK. We're a European business now, but those statistics are just from the UK. certainly in news consumption, we will see larger news consumption via our digital app than we will by measuring the viewing to the old Sky News channel. It's not just about where you watch, it's also about how you watch. This is a program guide. This is what you would have navigated and found what you wanted to watch 10 years ago. Doesn't feel that long ago. And this is the same screen, the same experience today. And you can see that the linear metaphor, the idea of just listing lots of channels and sequencing them in time order, has been relegated to just 1/8 of the screen. And actually, what people are going in is picking lots of different sources from their content. It might be things that they've recorded on their hard drive, things that they pull down from a server in the cloud, things that they want to record and watch another time. If I look at, I'll do a little mini case study. So if we look at Fortitude, it's a big original drama on Sky, part of our strategy of investing more in UK drama. We had a live audience of 1.7 million. And again, if we rewind back in time, that would have been the entirety of the audience. That would be the consumption. If you didn't watch it at 9 o'clock, you'd missed it, and that was the end of the story. You'd have to, at the very least, wait for a year or two when it came back around and was repeated. So we had 1.7 million live viewers on the day. Over the next week, because we strip it over a number of channels that digital make possible, we had another million viewers on top of that. Then we had 1 million people recorded it. So they liked the show, they didn't want to watch it that time, even that week, but they recorded it and they've consumed that over the last month or so. We then had 450,000 people, big numbers, watching it on their mobile and tablet. So they didn't go anywhere near their TV at all. They would have watched it maybe in bed or on the train. And then we had another 375,000 people consuming it on demand. So good news for us, because we're able to reach more people. If we'd just stuck to the old metaphor, we'd have reached a smaller number of people. Good news for consumers, because they're able to choose in every sense when and where they're able to watch it. And the same would be true of any show. This is how people are consuming typically their high-end video content today. One of the ways we facilitated that is our box used to not be connected. So it used to be connected to a satellite. We'd push things into it like a broadcaster, but it wasn't connected to the internet. And we've gone through over the last few years and connected the vast majority of our customers' set-top boxes, such that we are now, we think, certainly in the UK, the largest single connected platform. That's interesting, and I'll come on and talk about how that opens up other opportunities to do things that rely upon that. And we have something like 2.3 billion video streams a year. That's a program being downloaded or a program being streamed live. What that means is if I use my allotted 45 minutes, there'll be 200,000 programs will have been streamed or downloaded by Sky customers in this period of time. So we're doing this sort of stuff at scale. We're a big business. When we do digital, one of the challenges we face is we've got so many customers, their appetite to do this is so strong that we very quickly get very high levels of adoption, and then we have to make sure that the back-end technology can support that when actually we're often the people who are the first mover and making these things happen. Now that's in terms of consumption. And if I had to call out one thing, the biggest change and the fastest part of movement is in the consumption side, how we are all consuming our video. On the other side of things, it's obviously, as a business, it changes how we recruit and interact with our customers. So the most obvious thing is we use the web as a sales tool. We get over 1/3 of our sales now direct through the web. It's a category where people sort of shop around, they research, it's not a casual purchase. And so it's very suited to the web, and we've made a success of that. We also use social media. Other platforms to target our marketing spend. We're one of the UK's biggest above-the-line brands. We spend a very significant amount of money. I think we used to be second only to the government. I think that may yet have changed as well. So it's really important to us that we do that very effectively. And remember, we're not just trying to sell things to customers. We're also just trying to make them aware of all the content that's there. The old TV listing pages don't really work these days as a way of finding out what shows are on. So we make extensive use of social media, and we're able to use their tools to identify or estimate that we can identify very significant numbers of our customers using social media. So with Facebook, we've done a highly targeted post campaign which highlights upcoming shows. That's an upcoming show, and we can actually embed a little button on people's Facebook that lets them click through and record that show if they want. We're the first broadcaster to be able to do that. For the show Fortitude, which was set in an Arctic research station, we created, with the help of puppeteers behind Warhorse, we created an animatronic polar bear. It roamed around London, and we used that to create footage that then promptly went viral with millions of impressions on Twitter and hundreds of thousands of impressions on YouTube, actually all around the world. The programme ended up being sold around the world. During the Ryder Cup, we used Twitter so that people's Twitter account pops up near live clips of the action, and that can generate people's desire to then go and watch the show when they get home, potentially. And then finally, for the Enfield Haunting, which is a London-based drama, we created a video where we set up hidden cameras in a house. We invited lots of estate agents to come around and do an appraisal of the house, and then we performed various tricks on them that convinced them that the house was haunted, and videoed their reaction. And again, that went viral. It had 2.5 million views. So this is an area that I guess we're all learning, and we're learning too. But video is a very important part of that, and obviously video is our core product. Now, digital is also changing how we interact and serve customers, and our digital channels are increasingly at the front line of how we service them. And that's good for customers because of the greater flexibility. They're 24/7. Customers are often feel empowered by finding their own answers. And it's obviously good for us in terms of re-gearing our cost base more towards a digital environment. So we've created a dedicated service app that's been downloaded 750,000 times. That lets customers manage most of the sort of interactions. They're not that complex generally. It's, I'd like to change my PIN, I'd like to look at my bill, can I change my address or change my billing detail? All of those interactions with customers are very easy, or potentially very easy to move online. We've reworked our account management so that we get 2.5 million visits per week. Those were things that otherwise would have had to be calls or visits, or just simply left the customer dissatisfied. And the number of service transactions over the last couple of years has increased by 1/3. So we're on a journey. I would say the journey isn't as advanced as the actual consumption journey, where people have readily adopted digital devices as the primary way of consumption. In service, we're following on behind, but that's a big opportunity for us going forward. So look, finally, this has really helped us grow. I mean, it's been a big force that's ripped through the business. A lot of our mindset has been to step in and embrace it, to be the change, not to be defined by others, and actually to see it as an opportunity, to remove the physical barriers for people to consume content from us and to grow the business. And there's 3 specific opportunities. Sorry, first of all, this is just what it's done. So over the last 10 years, we've significantly increased our customer base, nearly 4 million new customers. We've doubled our revenues. We've added over £3.3 billion of revenues from getting bigger as a company, being able to reach more customers. And then these are 3 new growth opportunities, none of which would have happened had we not been able to move into a more squarely digital world, had we not been able to connect Sky boxes. So the first is Sky Store. We always used to have a small movie rental service, but we're now able, because we've moved into this dematerialized world where you can download a file and you can buy a file rather than buying a plastic DVD, we've now been able to move into the DVD purchase market. And now we're regularly, for new releases, it's a very frontless business, but for new releases, we're regularly jockeying for #1 position as DVD retailer in the UK with Amazon. And we could not have done that had we not moved our business into a digital environment. Second thing is targeted advertising. So one of the exciting things about technology is it lets us not just serve one ad that gets broadcast with the program from the satellite, but serve targeted ads in the same slots, so viewers see the same or fewer ads, but ones that are more targeted to them and their needs. And we're able to do that in a really tailored way. So those of you who are advertisers or have big brand budgets, you should really come and talk to us, because we use the same sort of data sets that you will be using to target things like your direct mail campaigns, but you can now get the added benefit of being able to create video campaigns. And it's lowering the barrier to entry of TV. TV's been a very untargeted medium in the UK. If you wanted to buy a TV campaign, you'd typically have had to buy a region of 4 million people, only a small number of whom may have shared the attributes you were trying to reach. You can now buy TV in the same way that you would buy direct mail. You can buy by affluence, by age, by lifestyle, and a lot of other factors. So it's allowing people to get onto TV for the first time with campaigns of £20,000 or £30,000, which previously would probably not have bought lunch for the TV executive who was trying to sell you the ad. So we're growing the market. 70% of our targeted advertising clients have never before advertised on TV. These are just some of the advertisers. It's already available on a wide variety of Sky Zone channels, and it will be available on Channel 5 airtime over the course of the next 12 months. And then the final example just shows how technology is opening up new pockets of customer demand. There's millions of customers in Freeview homes who want a little bit more pay TV, but don't want to commit to a long-term contract, or maybe they couldn't have a dish, or they didn't want a big bundle. And to address that market, again, purely based around digital delivery, there's no dish involved in this, it's all a streamed product that you plug into the internet, and then you will receive the content streamed over that. We've launched Now TV. It's a second brand, it sits alongside Sky. It offers some of the same great content like movies or sports, but on a pay-as-you-go basis, because you don't need the hardware, you don't have the same level of upfront requirement. And that business is growing very, very well. And it has broadened our footprint rather than in any way cannibalised it. So I said I'd be quick. So in conclusion, we've seen a really fundamental change. I guess there's other industries that have also been at the sharp end of digital as well. But I think for me, the pace of change has never been greater. And the way in which we consume content compared with where we were only a decade ago has been really, really profound. And I think we've been pretty successful. We've stepped into that. We've seen it as an opportunity, not a threat. We've had to invest and change the way in which we've worked our delivery models. But customers have rewarded us. You know, that's why we've grown the business. That's why we've got more customers. And it's opened up new opportunities that, if we're honest, even we didn't identify at the start of that journey. So, you know, one of the positive things is that along the way, you know, because of that dematerialized world, you actually find other opportunities, things that you can do that you didn't think were possible at the time. So with that, I'm very happy, Ms. Tiffany, I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you so much. So we've got some great time for questions, and thank you so much. It was so interesting looking at how you're driving the market in terms of that 70% of your customers had never advertised on TV before, and looking at the way in which you're expanding into market. So can we have some microphones just at the back here? Thank you very much. Please do use your name and company, and thanks very much.
Hi, I'm Simon Williams. Great presentation. It just strikes me that what's happened in the last 10 years with Sky as well, that alongside the journey you've described, the brand reputation of Sky has moved from being one of the almost disliked brands in the early, or resented brands in the early 2000s, to being one of the most admired and liked brands now because of the innovation. And I just wondered what your perception was on that, because I think it's the big benefit that's not in your presentation is how the brand equity of Sky has been transformed.
Yeah, look, I think I'd agree with that. I think that's very fair. I think partly because of where you start as a pay TV business, by definition, you start with this perception that you're taking something away, that it used to be free and it's pay, and that was a myth, but we don't need to go back into that. I think the good news about this is it's all about removing the barrier. Our brand you'll see the Sky branded presented in advertising as semi-transparent. And the point is, we don't want to be a barrier between consumers and the content. Our ambition is to make people be able to hunt it out as quickly and as easily, and in a way that's as affordable as possible. And I think that's right. People do see Sky as an innovator. They see us as being very focused on the customer. I mean, it's a good thing in our business. We started 25 years ago with 0 customers, and then we had 1, and then we had 2, and now we've got 11.8 million. But we've had to, in a way, justify ourselves to every customer. Most of them are free to leave at any time. And so that's made us sort of almost have the mentality of a retailer. And I hope we're a very customer-centric business as a result. And digital's definitely been a big part of that. It's a bit restless. You always have to keep changing because customers' expectations go up all the time, and rightly so, not just from our industry, but from other organisations that are just best in class.
Thank you very much.
Hi, it's Biggie Ganger 4. You mentioned about TV advertising, obviously with downloads and catch-up, etc. Where do you see the future of TV advertising going?
Look, broadly, I think there'll be fewer adverts, and the ones that will be there will be more tailored. I think that will be true across every platform. There's a lot less, I don't want to get into too much industry speak, but the old world people described as linear. It was sort of sequential, and you sat there and you waited for the programme and then you watched the next one. And in some categories, linear consumption is dwindling out very, very fast. On some of our platforms, Sky Atlantic, which is a really successful, you'd probably describe it roughly as a high-end drama channel. People are consuming that. The majority of their consumption is non-linear. They're just saving it, or they're watching it as a set of box sets. Some of us probably have a behaviour now where you go home and you've got a box set that you're working through rather than just waiting to see what's on at 9 o'clock at night. And that's really challenging because the ad loads in those are much, much lower because you're not watching in a linear environment. Now, the flip side is, you all know the cliche about 50% of my advertising was wasting, I just didn't know which 50%. In TV, there is a better mousetrap. We've got one called targeted advertising. Others will bring other products to market. TV advertising itself, there's still no replica for that. The experience of having your ad, your 30 or 60-second ad, run in that high brand environment in the middle of Game of Thrones or a great new drama, or in the middle of the Champions League final, that you can't replicate that by just buying Facebook likes. It's also a very transparent medium. There's no sense of an ad being below the fold or buying click-throughs on a low-quality website that then get mixed in with some slightly higher quality websites and you get sold as a package. TV advertising, when it's done properly, is a very, very accountable medium. If the viewer does not watch the ad, you do not pay for it. So I think it's a challenge to the industry. It's not a huge part of our business. We're very excited about what we can do with TV advertising. It's got a lot of social benefits. If you think about TV advertising, it's a very national medium. If you're a regional brand, if you've got a chain of 4 or 5 local coffee shops in the southwest, if you're a further education college, drawing on the northeast as your catchment area, there aren't really any successful high quality advertising formats that you can use, and now you can. But it's a big change, and we're probably only just at the starting point because most TV advertising is still bought in the old-fashioned, untargeted way, and that will change.
Thank you very much. There's a gentleman just in front.
Christian Checkley, Director of Digital Infrastructure for Mott MacDonald. Andrew, you mentioned in your presentation some of the pressures that's been put on the broadband infrastructure with all the streaming and the measures we can, the media that we can actually use. How is Sky investing in addressing some of those pressures, particularly for rural communities in UK and Europe?
Our investment has been, we do 2 things. One, we are an ISP in our own right. That's less about content delivery because we deliver content across everybody's network. What it does mean is that we've got points of presence and servers across the UK, so it's not just coming from a sort of central place. We actually propagate a lot of the distribution down quite a long way into the network. What we don't own, we're not allowed to own really by the government, is the last mile, which is where the contention for things like rural rural broadband lies. And we think as an industry, that is an industry problem. It's actually something that Ofcom need to look at. Probably they need to make a reference to the Competition and Markets Authority to look at the role of something called Openreach, which is the near monopoly local infrastructure network that we would identify as a conflict of interest between BT as retailer, which is all fair and we should all jolly well compete and deliver really good outcomes for consumers, but also BT as the monopoly owner of the infrastructure that makes it a little bit hard for people like TalkTalk and Sky to actually innovate, create new products and invest ourselves. So there's a little bit of an issue there. The good news is that this experience is across all different networks and devices. So it's not as good in rural areas, but we distribute over 4G, 3G, as well as over fixed line broadband. And of course, Sky itself, a lot of it is still coming over the satellite, but just not the on-demand proportion. Okay.
Thank you very much. Any more questions, please? I can see just a gentleman at the back there.
Ray Eitel-Porter, Head of Analytics for Accenture UK. What do you think will have fundamentally changed in your world 10 years from now?
Golly, well, the first thing is we've stopped using 10 years as a time horizon for planning. I think we may have moved through this anniversary, but certainly when I last talked about digital and what we're doing in our business, if you went back 10 years, the iPhone hadn't been launched. You just think about, well, it's hard to think about, right? So 10 years as a planning horizon, not spending an awful lot of time worrying about that. We've moved that into 3 to 5 years. I think the trick is to work out what will change and what won't change. And the thing that we don't see changing is consumers' basic need state. So if you look at, I'm on the board of Just Eat. Just Eat is a digital business. It's an entirely digital business. But it's about a very fundamental need state that I don't see changing anytime soon, which is I would like to eat. Our need state as a business is I would like to consume content. And we are, there's a lot of constants. And the trick is, I think, to find the bits that are constant and then stay as agile as you can on the bits that aren't. So the constants are people still like a shared viewing experience. Not exclusively, but things like watching great high-end sport still touches a big part of human emotion, and people enjoy that live experience. There's a lot of moods and emotions that are triggered by a lot of drama that is produced, and that's very constant as well. So I think there's a lot that's changing. In a way, the trick is to say, what are the bits that are still going to be here? And I have a high conviction that those are still going to be here in 5 years' time. A little bit less plural consumption, a little bit more singular. You think about music, certainly when I grew up, music, by default, everyone in the family had to listen to the same music. You didn't all have headphones plugged in, and it was semi-broadcast in that someone somewhere had a loudspeaker on. I've got 2 kids, they're 11 and 12. Everyone in the family has their own playlist, their own multiple devices, their headphones, not mine, but the kids are headphoned on all the time, and consumption has moved into an almost entirely singular environment. TV will never do that, in my view, but some of that shift will happen. So I don't know if that fully answers your question, but that's certainly part of it. And then from a business on the supply side, a lot of the things will continue to be the same, but the attributes that will win become less material. So if it was about, in the old days, it was about if you wanted to service customers, you had to have a jolly big call centre, and that was the successful factor of production. The constant is understanding your customer's needs and being able to respond to it. But the physical delivery mechanism may well change. That makes sense.
Thank you. Very good question. And very helpfully quite grouped together. Another question, a few people along.
Hi, Henry Cohen, CIO of the Daily Telegraph. What's the experience and take-up of 3D been for Sky? And in relation to that, what do you see the growth of virtual reality being like?
3D is one of the rare examples where we were probably ahead of consumers. Generally, we're pretty good at sometimes creating markets, but normally being pretty much in lockstep with arriving at the point of an innovation at around the same time as the customer is ready for it. And 3D frankly hadn't entirely gone to plan. The content's really good, the experience is mostly good, but the consumer equipment with glasses was just too much of a barrier. In a way, to the question about brand is, what do consumers want? They want very simple and easy ways of consuming the content. And as soon as you start putting a barrier, which is I've got to find the glasses from the back of the sofa, or I haven't got enough glasses for all of my friends, you start to see quite a lot of drop-off. So we were a little bit ahead of consumer electronics. I think some of the same thing with virtual reality. And one of the strategies we are bringing to bear is we're working closely with some of the producers of content, including making some small investments in some, and some of the hardware manufacturers to test and learn. Because actually creating virtual reality content is probably easier than the job of getting all of you to start wearing huge, big virtual reality goggles and spending a significant proportion of your time consuming that way. So we'll sort of watch and see, and our approach to some of those cutting-edge innovations is going to be a little bit more sort of creating a set of seeds or portfolios or options that we can activate later, rather than in the old days like HD, which was quite a singular technology, saying, we've got a high conviction that this is the way forward, and then we're going to pump prime and really make it happen.
Thank you very much. I think there's a question just at the far back, just behind the pillar. Thank you.
Hi there, Simon Morris from Adobe. Firstly, it's great to see a group CFO on stage at one of these events. It's not often you see that. As a long-term Sky customer, for me, customer experience, the buck stops when it comes to when a problem happens. And it could be just before you're waiting to watch a live event, and the experience is kind of what happens next. And again, as a Sky customer for a number of years, that experience, when you might make that first phone call, is, I find, kind of quite inconsistent. Sometimes it can be brilliant, sometimes it can be very not brilliant, far from that. What are you doing to kind of invest in that area or focus on that area of ensuring a kind of consistent, continuous experience?
We're doing a lot. We invest a huge amount in customer experience. It is one of the areas that defines our brand and how we differentiate ourselves. And objectively, we come top of the league tables every single time there's a monthly survey that Ofcom, our regulator, does. That's not enough, because that only compares you to your peers in the industry. And as I sort of said earlier, people's expectations go up all the time. If Ocado can, drop your groceries through the letterbox at 9:05, then people want to have a more targeted slot for our engineer to turn up. So you have to keep investing and moving things forward. Some of that is just physical. Over the last few years, we've been on a journey where we've taken in-house the vast majority of those functions. So whereas others have outsourced, we've brought things onshore, back to the UK, and we've resourced that so that those are employees. So if we have a direct experience with a customer, that should be a touch point that is owned by Sky rather than tried to push away. So that's one thing we do. Digital helps a lot on the variability as well. We used to, it's a small part of our business, but we used to do a lot of pay-per-view boxing and pay-per-view sports events. Now, typically people would phone up, and whatever you did, it's an interesting exercise in people. Whatever you try and do, for a month out, we would market and heavily discount sort of, the chance to buy early, and we still had 80% of people calling up in the last 4 hours before, to buy. And that puts huge variability in the system. If you've got 12 million customers, I mean, imagine that, and they're all trying to reach you at the same time by voice. Now we've designed that out digitally, and so we get 96% of any buys for peak events digitally, either by just pressing a button on the remote or by going online. And again, we use things like social media to reach customers in advance so that it doesn't come as a surprise on the day. So there's things that we can do with digital. It's obviously a 24/7 channel. If you have a huge number of customers and you understand statistics, you are unfortunately and deeply regrettably, and you're going to get some experiences at the end of the bell curve that are not as good as we would like, and we continually strive to eliminate those and improve our service quality.
Thank you. Great question. Any other questions from the floor, please? Lots of good things coming out here. I guess from my perspective, what I was really interested in, Andrew, is that there's so many programs of change and implementation internally, and lots of those driven by that demand from your consumers themselves. How do you go about managing which kind of innovation programs to take forward?
That's a really good question. If anyone's got the answer, I would dearly love to know, because that is one of the biggest areas of contention. You know, that old world I described of 10 years ago effectively only had one technology path, and it was a path that we owned end to end. We could control every aspect of it. Now we're constantly innovating across multiple infrastructures. We're very guided by customers. I mean, we say this to ourselves a lot: is what are the things that are going to move the dial to customers? One of the benefits of digital, which doesn't apply to all of our technology investments, but one of the benefits is the cost of testing is much lower. So if you're building a broadcast chain, the first thing you do is spend 300 million on an advanced broadcast centre with 700,000 kilometres of fibre optic wiring, and you've built 10 studios. Actually, you have to do all of that before you go on air. You know, in digital, you can buy the equivalent of a couple of GoPros. You know, you can create a mashup of a product. You can test and learn and involve the customer in that conversation a lot quicker and cheaper. There's always a trade-off. For a big brand, it's a little bit tougher, to be honest, because you've got lots of customers like Simon who've got very, very high expectations of service. And the thing you do in a small startup environment, which is just put out there a beta, and if it falls over a little bit, so be it. You know, that's often inconsistent. So we struggle with that. But certainly you can get to market a little bit cheaper and quicker in digital, and you've got to make the most of that. We use extensive A/B testing for everything, not just for running ads, but for products, for the layout of a home screen, for the layout of an EPG. So when you bring products to market, they should be a little bit more researched. And the other thing, we just had to increase the relative investment on technology and innovation in our business. And although we don't talk about it a lot, we've run steady operating efficiency programs to tackle some of the overheads in the business. So you just have to make resource allocation decisions to push a bit more into innovation, because that has a lot of the benefits that I've talked about. It's helped grow the business, but make do with slightly fewer finance people or people in the back office to accommodate that. And the good news is directionally customers see more of the value. If you stop someone in the street and say, why do you like Sky? It's not because of you've got a nice finance director. It's because I really like Sky's content and I really like the innovation that they put on display. So if you can put more of the resources of the business to what we call the sort of front office, the bit the customer sees, you do have to make choices somewhere else.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Not an easy question to answer, and thank you so much for explaining that so carefully. So, ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude our sessions before lunch. Can you join me in saying a great big thank you to Andrew Griffith? Thank you so much.